Hi there, this is Max with Family Piano Co. And today I want to talk about the difference between bright and warm pianos. So when you're going piano shopping, one common question that you might get asked is, do you prefer a brighter sound or a warmer sound? And a lot of people might have some foggy idea of the difference between the two, but today I really want to talk about the difference between the two and what it can do for you musically and which you might prefer. So this piano here is a Kohler and Campbell, a KC-118 from 1990. Every piano I'm going to show today is going to be kind of a similar build of piano, to just leave out different variables, to just focus in on the sound and what you can get out of it. This is going to be a pretty bright piano. Now, what does that mean? I'm going to play something real quick here. Now, this is a bright piano, meaning each tone is pretty intensely focused. Some words that you might hear about bright pianos are lively, focused, intense, clear, crystal clear, lively, natural. Some characteristics here is, on a bright piano, the attack, the way the sound begins, is going to be pretty sharp, pretty sudden. This makes the sound really right at your fingertips, provides a lot of clarity. And so I'm going to go ahead and play. This is a Bach piece here, because one big effect of a bright piano is you can hear what's going on in the different regions of the piano very cleanly. There's going to be different melodies happening in different parts of the keyboard, a lot of things going on, and you should be able to hear it really nice and clean. As well, there's going to be a lot of sharp articulations, like these kind of quick, sharp staccatos will come out very lively, very articulative, because the attack is going to be sharper. And also the cutoff of the notes is going to be cleaner on a bright piano. So this is Bach. So there's going to be a lot of vividness to the sound, a nice intensity to the sound. Everything is going to come across really nice and clean on a good bright piano. And it's really good for learning, because you can really hear everything that you're doing very cleanly. In the bass range, clarity is always a very important thing. You don't want your sound to be muddy. A bright piano is going to be easy to distinguish the tones on. Your mid mid-range is going to be very strong and projective, kind of front-loaded in terms of a sharp attack. There's also a bit of a, you can say, and it depends on the piano, a slightly metallic or a slightly twangy sound to a bright piano. And of course that depends on the piano itself. Some of them will be very pure, some of them will have more of a percussive twang, but it really gives character to the sound. There's also going to be more uniqueness to the character of each of the different registers. Really what lends well to counterpoint playing, like with Bach, or like with jazz when you have different textures going on. When you want something really clean sounding, a drier sound is another sound you'll have associated with bright pianos like this. So if you're a jazz player, if you're playing something punchy, if you love playing Baroque music, or even if you love playing romantic music or anything, but you really value clarity of sound and a more textured, detailed kind of sound, the bright piano is probably going to be right for you. Now I'm going to head over to a warm piano, play the same Bach piece, and talk about the advantages of a warm piano. All right, and here we are at the Kawai ST-1. This is a new piano, brand new, and it is an institutional piano in satin ebony, and I'm demonstrating it as our warm piano. And so I want to go ahead and play the Bach piece for you here. Now, in general, on a warmer piano, you're going to have, a lot more of a mellow, soulful kind of tone. In general, I talked about how on the brighter piano, each area of the piano has a pretty unique character to it. On a warmer piano, generally it's going to be better blended together and sound more similar across the piano. So if you're playing, something with chords in the left hand, melody line in the right hand, blend together very, very well and give you a really warm, lush sound with expansive, wide tones. So I'm going to play the Bach here. Some things that you'll notice are the articulations, like the staccatos. There's going to be a difference in how they sound. They're going to come off more rounded, a little more gentle. It's not as sharp of a clash as on a bright piano. And then the way that the sound dissipates at the end is it's a longer tail to the dissipation of the sound. It takes a longer time, and there's more bleed over in terms of one sound into the next. This is really good for legato playing, to make it sound really smooth, really natural and gentle. But it's going to come out with staccato playing, just a little less vivid. But you have more room in terms of what you can do expression-wise on a warm piano. more freedom of expression at the high dynamics, at the loud dynamics. A warm piano will generally give you more nuance and detail in the softer dynamics. So if you really like playing with an ethereal quality, spiritual kinds of music, soulful kinds of music, gentle, lyrical, a warmer piano is going to give you more of the creative palette that you would like to have. So some other differences, because the tones themselves are wider, now your tones themselves are going to be really rich and full of color, especially down in the bass here. Big, booming, resonating. But one difference is because the tones are really wide, there's going to be a little bit less clarity overall. And you can still distinguish your tones. They're just going to, because they dissipate slower and are wider in nature, they're going to kind of blend into each other a little more. Surrounding the central sound. Now your mid-range is going to be, really full, but overall much gentler in nature than a bright piano. Your upper range is not going to be quite as sparkling, or you can even say in a negative way, piercing, depending on the specific piano. It's going to be more mellow, but a lot fuller tone. Again, a lot easier to express yourself at these low dynamics on a warm piano. On a bright piano, it's easier to express yourself consistently at high dynamics. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and open up this piano here and show you, what goes into making the piano sound, and talk about what you can and can't change in terms of the piano sound. All right, so here we have our ST-1 opened up for you to see, and I want to talk about what gives a piano its sound. And so there are some parts of that are going to be unchangeable, inherent to the instrument itself, and then there are going to be parts of it that you can customize and you can change. So that's one nice thing with an acoustic piano is you can change the sound of the piano through voicing and get it closer to how you want it. But there's also a lot that's inherent to the piano itself. So there's a good amount of freedom to change the sound. So if the piano that you're looking at is pretty close to what you like, you can almost certainly get it to exactly how you want. But if it's drastically different than what you would like sound-wise, but you just really love the touch of it, you can get close to where you want to be, but a big part of that's going to be kind of baked into the piano. So why would it be baked into the piano? Well, there's several parts of the piano that a technician just can't change, at least not in a practical way. One is going to be the soundboard. On a good quality piano, it's going to be a solid spruce soundboard. And this is your kind of sound production component. So hammers strike the strings, and then all the sound energy gets focused through the soundboard, and that's what coats the sound with tone, with life. And every soundboard is going to be unique because they're all from separate organic materials. So a solid spruce soundboard, it's going to be, okay, how old was the tree that it cut down from? Where was the tree grown? Every one of these things is going to change the sound a little bit. So if we had 10 ST-1s, all along this row here, each one of them would sound slightly different because the exact soundboard is different. Now, another thing that changes the piano is going to be the overall cabinet design, and especially how strong and rigid the piano is. You'll see on this ST-1 a lot of really thick, strong back posts. In general, the stronger and more rigid the piano is, more of the energy that you feed into the piano, think of it like a machine, the more energy that you feed into the piano can be projected as tone. Why? Because the stronger, more rigid a piano is, the less energy is being lost due to inefficiency. So the more efficient, the more strong and rigid a piano is, the better it can project its tone. Now, some other things that you can't really change on the piano is going to be the scale design. And I'm not a technician, so to describe it in a pretty simple way, the scale design is, exactly how the different string lengths of the piano, because you go from shorter strings here to the longest strings over here. So exactly how that gradient of different lengths is kind of laid out, the geometry of it is going to be your scale design, along with the diameters of the strings, which will be different on different brands of pianos. Just the way that they do it, it's going to be unique to each brand and different time periods of piano, and that all has to do with the effect of the sound, as well as the exact materials and ways that the strings are made. Now, the strings, you can change your strings on a piano. In fact, the first 40, 50 years that you have the strings is considered when they're at their freshest, newest. Over time, a process called oxidation, which is when these strings start to interact with the oxygen in the air, like any metal does over many decades, it will begin to brighten up the sound. Right now, brand new strings are going to be, this is copper. It's going to be really beautiful, really radiant color. Over time, it begins to become more dull, both in sound and visually, the look of the strings. You can change the strings on a piano, and it's recommended if you want the healthiest, freshest sound to do that every 40-ish years or so. But that's going to be an integral part of the sound. And a lot of times if you're looking at used instruments, unless they're like a higher end upright, they're probably going to have the original strings. And that's because it tends to run about $3,000 or so to restring an upright piano. Now, the other thing that affects the sound, of course, sound is produced when the hammer strikes the string. So the two big things are going to be the density of the hammer felts and the shape of the hammer themselves. Now, in a brand new piano, the density has not been changed from years of hitting against the strings. The shape has not been changed. So generally, newer pianos are going to be kind of at their warmest. The strings have not yet aged. The hammer felts are exactly the shape that they're intended to be and nice and soft. Now, technicians can change that. And this would be a common step in a refurbishment process, is reshaping your hammer felts to get them back to that original shape as closely as possible. You can also alter the shape to make the piano warmer. And then changing the density, because years of compacting against the strings is going to harden up the felt. And a technician can change that for you and soften the piano. So I would say, they can change the sound nature maybe 30% of the way or so. So let's say, your piano is 8 out of 10 in terms of brightness. That's a pretty bright piano. With some solid voicing, they could probably bring it to a 5 or so, like right in the middle. But you wouldn't be able to change it from, a very bright piano to, wow, this is one of the most mellow pianos I played. That won't necessarily work. But that just goes into the different components that makes a piano sound, what you can change and what you cannot change. So if you find a piano that you really like the sound of, but you kind of wish it was tweaked a little bit, either warmer or brighter, well, that can be accomplished for you. Don't worry about that. At that point, I would be worrying about, do I like the touch of the piano? All right, and now I'm going to play 2 more examples of particularly bright and warm pianos for you guys to hear the difference. All right, so here we have a Sohmer institutional piano. Now, this was made in America in 1969. And this is going to be another one of our brighter pianos that I want to show, as well as I'm going to show this Kawai UST-8 over here from 1990 as an example of a really mellow kind of piano. So I talked about on a brighter piano, you're going to have a more percussive sound. You're going to have a sharper attack. So if you're playing something kind of jumpier or bouncier, going to come across really well. Now on this particular piano, I would say this is one piano that brightened up over the ages, but it still retains some of its original character. You can tell, by the glow of the sound, this was a warmer piano when it was new. Listen to the way on an aged piano and a brighter piano, the different characters of the different registers of the piano. Here you have deep booming, brightening up as you go up the piano. Really nice multi-dimensional effect because you're going to have a different core character to the sound at the different parts of the piano. The attack is sharper, so your more jumpy, bouncy, staccato chords are going to play really cleanly with a nice cutoff. In general, these institutional pianos, they're going to be designed to be at least somewhat bright. They don't tend to be extremely warm because as an institutional piano, one, they're going for a versatile kind of in the middle between warm and bright kind of sound. Over the years, it will get brighter, but especially when you want to have clarity. Brightness gives you a lot of clarity, and institutional pianos is kind of designed for a practice room or a teaching studio environment where that clarity is going to be a really big deal. So different sounds. More uniqueness to the sound overall, which is both a function of the age of the piano, but also the brighter nature of the piano. Now I'm going to show the Kawai over here. Now this Kawai UST-8, it's definitely on the warm, mellow side. It is about 30 years old, so it will have just begun to have the first elements of that aging process on the strings happen. But in general, you can tell it's very nice and warm, velvety. Wide. The sound is very gentle, and the different areas of the keyboard are more similar to each other, so they blend together real well. In general, warmer instruments, you have more control of the quiet dynamics. But your sharper articulations are going to be a little less defined because the cutoff time is longer. The notes kind of hang in the air. There's more of a tonal glow to the sound that carries over. Still a good amount of clarity. It's just not going to be quite as vivid as on a brighter piano. But if you're playing soulful music, then a bright piano like this is going to be just breathtakingly beautiful. So there's a lot of different words that you are going to hear associated with bright pianos and warm pianos. Essentially, it is pretty subjective. It's kind of like trying to describe colors through words. Like if you're trying to describe the color red to someone without, saying the word red, you can kind of come up with a good approximation, some pretty good reference points. but you're not going to get the exact nature of the sound. That's kind of what it is when we describe a piano's sound. We're looking for kind of the closest approximations that we can get through vocabulary, but it's an abstract thing. So bright pianos will be radiant, percussive, could consider them more brassy, precise, very clean, where warm instruments are going to be full-bodied, lush, rich, and gentle, harmonious, soulful. A lot of different words you can use to describe it. And these are just kind of the ends of the spectrum: warm, bright. There's a lot of room in the middle. There's pianos that will have certain characteristics of bright pianos and certain characteristics of warm. Everything can fall somewhere in between the spectrum. And there's a lot of different words that are going to be used. So in general, it's just good to go into the shopping experience having a little more familiarity between a warm piano and a bright piano, and start to be thinking about, all right, what kind of suits my personal playing style better? What do I like more? And then keep in mind that you can voice the piano and you can change its tone. It won't be a drastic 180 on the character of the piano. But there's a lot that you can do to make the piano the way that you like. So overall, let me know if you have any more questions about warm or bright pianos, or just any piano related questions in general. I'm happy to help out however I can. Thank you very much for watching.